people will say, okay, I start the day, I feel fine. By the end of the day, I look in the mirror and like somebody might think I'm pregnant.
Correct. Yes. So if somebody says they're bloated and it's every day, then usually unless they're following a very strict diet that doesn't have any high FODMAP foods, which are these highly fermentable foods that the bacteria go to town with, and then your stomach blows up as they produce the gases, then typically you're going to be looking at SIBO.
Welcome to Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm your host, Jenn Trepic, talking wellness and weight loss for real life. We're here to clear up the myths, misinformation, bad science, and marketing to teach you how to eat and how to cheat. Are you ready? I'm having salad with a side of fries. Hey friend, welcome back to Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm Jenn Trepic, your host and health coach, here with you every week for wellness without the weirdness. And we often talk about the importance of gut health. Even a couple weeks ago, we talked about the connection between gut health and chronic disease. Today, we're going to dig into gut bacteria and gastrointestinal upset, right? Or a lot of the symptoms that we experience and try to make sense of those. So I know some of these are very common. Let me introduce you to our incredible guest. She's a certified health coach out of Tucson, Arizona. She specializes in helping clients locally and nationally heal gut health issues and reverse autoimmune disease naturally. She also hosts the podcast, The Perfect Stool, Understanding and Healing the Gut Microbiome. Love the name of the show. Prior to starting her health coaching career, she co-founded and ran a nonprofit advocating for healthier food in the Montgomery County Public Schools in Maryland. Please help me welcome Lindsey Parsons.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah, I'm excited for this. I know we've connected a few times now. So we spoke initially, and then I think this is coming out May 1st, and my appearance on The Perfect Stool is coming out May 1st. So everybody, when you go finish here, I know, when you finish here, go click over to The Perfect Stool, and Lindsey and I change seats. So it's awesome. Yeah. So Lindsey, I want to start with your story, but really quick, I got to tell our members what they're getting this week. So members, your recipe this week is for 1-pan honey lemon chicken and asparagus. I love that it's a 1-pan in the oven complete meal. Asparagus is also great, not just for gut health, but this time of year, it is prime asparagus season. So if you want this recipe, be sure you're a member. Go to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries. For just $10 a month, you get weekly recipes, a monthly article or tool, extra discounts from me and our partners, plus access to live Q&A sessions. It's a total deal when you take advantage of the full offerings because you're going to save far more than that $10 cost. It's a no-brainer way to show yourself that your health is a priority. Plus, being a member supports this podcast and this community so we can continue to do this with you every week. So remember, you're going to go to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries, or just click the link in the show notes because that's a lot easier. Once you're there, you click support now, enter your email and payment info, click subscribe, and you're all set. You'll get this week's recipe for the 1-pan honey lemon chicken and asparagus. Okay, Lindsey, how did you come to this specialty of stool, right, and gut health? But also, I'm so curious about like the insights from your nonprofit focus on food in schools.
Okay, that's a wide question. So
I know.
I came to this specialty because of my own health struggles that started with gut health issues that I believe sprung from a case of food poisoning in Costa Rica, where I lived for a year and a quarter teaching English. And when you have food poisoning, say, 9 people get food poisoning, 1 out of those 9 will end up with what's called recurrent SIBO, or small intestine bacterial overgrowth, which is what I have. Its official name is post-infectious IBS because it comes from this food-borne infection. And that means that while I might be able to take the special antibiotic for SIBO called rifaximin or herbal antimicrobials or whatever to bring down the bacteria in my gut, it'll just keep coming back because the motility is slowed because there's an autoimmune attack on the migrating motor complex, which cleans out your small intestine after, 45, 90 minutes after eating. So that's always going to be a recurrent issue for me. So that leads to a lot of bloating and IBS symptoms and such. So that was, I guess that was how I got into gut health was my story. And that led to autoimmune disease because when you have a dysregulated gut and you have bacterial overgrowth, it creates inflammation. So anyway, that led to all that. Regarding the nonprofit, I was always interested in health and always interested in healthy food. So that just got me actually familiar with the profession of gut health or of health coach at all, which is how I ended up going into that career after I finished my time with the nonprofit.
Yeah, amazing. And so now you started to talk about it. And we've talked about it a few times, but we always have new listeners and memory refreshers are always helpful. So will you speak to the connection, not just between gut health and the immune system, but then the snowball into autoimmune?
Okay. So basically, there are think of the three legs of a stool for creating autoimmunity. Number one, there's going to be a genetic predisposition towards a particular type of autoimmunity. So maybe inflammatory bowel disease runs in your family. Maybe it's thyroid issues, Hashimoto's thyroiditis. Maybe it's rheumatoid arthritis. Everybody's got their more likely autoimmune condition if conditions are ripe in their body. But we all know that genetics are not a predetermination that you have to get something. You need then for the body to be weakened. So then the second piece is a leaky gut or intestinal hyperpermeability. And that will come about when you have some kind of gut infection like SIBO, like just general dysbiosis, could be post-antibiotics. I had a family member who took heavy antibiotics for, really severe infection. And then I saw her GI map test, this is a stool test afterwards, and it was like on fire. Like every possible pathogen after all these antibiotics were on fire. And she had none of those commensal bacteria that protect us. So you get this leaky gut, and then the leaky gut is allowing out these antigens, be they parts of gram-negative bacteria called lipopolysaccharide, which create inflammation, or they might be partly digested food particles like gluten, which is something that really resembles your thyroid gland. So therefore, Hashimoto's thyroiditis is one of the most common autoimmune diseases because the body sees that thing coming out of your intestines, not digested, full protein, and thinks, that doesn't belong here, attacks it. And then it says, what else looks like that in the body? Oh, well, your thyroid gland. So let me attack that too. And that's the way autoimmunity is seeded. And sort of the history of getting rid of autoimmunity naturally is reversing that process.
Yeah. And so it's interesting because you talked about the elements that are in place for something to qualify as autoimmune. And yet the symptoms that somebody might experience may not necessarily be, SIBO or post-infectious IBS or IBD, right?
Correct. It might be eczema. It might be psoriasis. Right. It might be headaches. It might be migraines. It might be just a sense of being inflamed. It might be type 2 diabetes. It could be other chronic diseases too, blood sugar dysregulation.
Yeah. So I want to break these down a little bit in terms of, what somebody might be experiencing and then what's potentially happening in the gut or in connection to add another tool to our tool belt, right? In terms of deciphering the language of our body, which is, these symptoms.
Okay.
Right.
Do you want to go symptom by symptom?
Yeah. Well, one of the big ones I hear all the time is bloating. Mm-hmm. Right? People will say, okay, I start the day, I feel fine. By the end of the day, I look in the mirror and somebody might think I'm pregnant.
Correct. Yes.
Right.
I know that very well because when I'm at my worst, I can look 6 months pregnant easily. So bloating is very much associated with SIBO. So that's my first thought. If somebody says they're bloated and it's every day, then usually unless they're following a very strict diet that doesn't have any high FODMAP foods, which are these highly fermentable foods that the bacteria go to town with, and then your stomach blows up as they produce the gases, then typically you're going to be looking at SIBO. And that may have been diagnosed as IBS because it may then go along with diarrhea or constipation or chronic other GI issues. You might also see reflux or you might have silent reflux, which looks more like a chronic cough, or maybe even irritation in the sinuses, irritation in the throat. Yeah. And
so with some of these symptoms, right, and then saying, okay, maybe that bloating is SIBO. How do I determine that that's really what's going on? Do I simply take out the high FODMAP foods and see what happens? What's our, certainly testing, but then we also hear some people are you don't need the testing or whatever, right?
Mhm.
There's a lot of different schools of thought. So what's your recommendation there?
Well, I would say the first step, if you have anything going on in the GI system, I know that it can be frustrating to go to your regular doctor and say, I've got this problem. Because if you just have some loose stool, but it's not like full on diarrhea every day for, multiple times a day, or if you have some bloating, but it's not, you can't necessarily time it to walk into the office 6 months pregnant. But nevertheless, you still should go and see a gastroenterologist because you could have a hidden case of some kind of colon cancer or something like that. So you just don't want to mess around with that. But that being said, once you get cleared by the gastroenterologist, well, if you find one who's educated in SIBO, and there's a good number that are because this is becoming part of the standard of care, you could get a SIBO test from your doctor. And most likely that's going to be a hydrogen and methane SIBO test. And it may come up with one of those or the other, and then you may get you may get rifaximin or rifaximin plus another antibiotic for methane, or it's actually called EMO now, intestinal methanogen overgrowth, because it's not just in the small intestine, it's in the large intestine as well. But say you don't find somebody like that, then you could do an experiment by taking out the FODMAP foods and seeing if that clears up your issues, but that doesn't mean that that's your solution, because you don't want to remain on a low fermentable diet for the rest of your life, and you may not need to. You may not have an ongoing issue like I do. You may have a one and done. You go, you get that antibiotic, or you use some herbal antimicrobials, and you're done. It's cleared. Your life is back again. Your stool is normal again. You're not having constipation or diarrhea or whatever it is. So,
yeah, awesome. And so then speaking of, right, I want to move into some of these other symptoms. Like, let's take, diarrhea or constipation, because they're kind of two sides of a coin, right? What if that's what somebody is experiencing, and to them, it's more chronic than, what they're used to.
Right. So if you're looking at diarrhea and you're having bloating, then I would be suspicious of SIBO. If you have diarrhea with no bloating, then I would be more suspicious of something like ulcerative colitis, microscopic colitis, collagenous colitis, one of those colitises. And that's part of inflammatory bowel disease. It's also possible you could have Crohn's disease, which is the other part of inflammatory bowel disease. Or you may have a parasite, especially if you've, say, been traveling to a developing country or something like that. Or you may just have dysbiosis. The other thing that might happen, and I mentioned your doctor will probably send you for a hydrogen or methane SIBO test, or it's a combo test. But what they might not likely send you for is the Trio Smart test, which is the newest version of a SIBO breath test that includes a third gas called hydrogen sulfide. And if you have diarrhea and you have a lot of, pain in the viscera, you feel constantly unsettled, and you also, you have diarrhea that's, many times a day, unpleasant and maybe smelly. And you may have constipation too. It's possible to have this and have constipation too. But in any case, this third gas, hydrogen sulfide, could be what's causing it. And it's not a large percentage of the cases, but it seems to be a large percentage of the really recalcitrant cases. Because if you went and you got your antibiotics and you did your whole thing and it didn't fix, then you may be one of the hydrogen sulfide people.
Yeah. And so this begs the question, and given the name of your podcast, The Perfect Stool, what is the perfect stool, right? Some people will say, well, I don't know if it qualifies as this thing. Okay. Or I don't think I'm constipated because I go, once a day or whatever. Yeah. Tell us the perfect stool.
So the perfect stool, well, there's something called the Bristol stool chart. And the perfect stool would be like a 3 or 4 on a scale of 1 to 7, with 1 being like rabbit pellets and 7 being full-on diarrhea. So 3 or 4, 3 is sort of like a sausage with cracks in it, and 4 is like more like a smooth sausage. But in both cases, most of the time, that should come out with a clean wipe. You wipe the toilet paper, there's nothing on there. And it comes out and you feel like you've got a nice mucus lining in your intestines. You're not seeing like mucus come out, but it just comes out smoothly. So that's the perfect stool. And it should come once a day minimum. It might come 2 or 3 times a day if you eat a lot of fiber and you're good about that. And you shouldn't have to strain. It doesn't necessarily mean it comes immediately, but you shouldn't have to strain to get it out or anything like that.
Yeah, I love it. We have a couple, called them Down and Dirty Part 1 and Part 2. So you guys can certainly go back to that. But I want to keep going on this and talk more about some of the other symptoms and even a lot of the remedies that we hear about so that we can help everybody kind of find their path through the murky water, right? So, okay. Really quick, though, let's take a break for our partner for this episode. So big thanks to Snap Cleaning Products for supporting Salad with a Side of Fries. Make household industrial cleaning a snap with their eco-friendly, economical, multi-purpose Snap products. Snap's concentrated, multi-purpose formulas perform light to industrial strength jobs all in one bottle. Snap's products give you the cleaning power of a variety of cleaners, saving you time, money, and valuable storage space. And Snap products were developed with the environment in mind, using plant-based ingredients that are biodegradable, phosphate-free, non-toxic, and bottled in recyclable containers. So just like enzymes in the gut help break down our food, Snap uses enzymes to truly clean. So the triple enzyme laundry detergent actually breaks down stains to remove them. It's just $13.95 for a 40-ounce bottle, does up to 80 loads of laundry. So it's truly free of chemicals and additives. It's no scent on its own. That's the triple enzyme laundry detergent. Now, if you do want a scent, they have the Snap Essentials laundry packs. That one's $15.95 for 24 loads. And that one comes in little sachet packets. So if you're ready, you could also upgrade all of your household cleaning products in one fell swoop with the Snap Pack for just $89.95. And all of these prices are before your discount. Because you're a Salad with a Side of Fries listener, you get 10% off and free shipping. So simply text the word CLEAN, CLEAN, to 844-947-4846. You'll receive the link and coupon code right to your phone. Again, simply text the word CLEAN to 844-947-4846 to try Snap, in particular the triple enzyme laundry detergent or the Snap Pack or anything. You'll get 10% off plus free shipping. This is a toll-free number. Standard text and data rates may apply. Okay, Lindsey, I have so many things going through my head. Let me ask you one more, a couple symptom-y things before we go into some of the popular remedies. So weight loss resistance or fat loss resistance can also be connected to what's happening in the gut, right?
Absolutely.
Walk us through it. Yeah.
Absolutely. So there's there's probably more than a couple ways that can be happening. Let's start with inflammation. So if you have a dysbiotic gut, meaning you have too much of the wrong stuff and not enough of the right stuff, then you may have an overgrowth of gram-negative bacteria. And those are the ones that have this inflammatory substance called lipopolysaccharide on their bodies that can get out and then you may also have then a leaky gut. So if those are getting out of your system and into circulation, they're creating inflammation. As a result, your body's immune responses can create blood sugar dysregulation. And so this is very common. And then you would see weight loss resistance. You would see prediabetes. You might see type 2 diabetes. That's all going to be at the root of those kinds of chronic conditions related to blood sugar. Another way that this could be happening is if you have low stomach acid. So if you have low stomach acid and you're not breaking apart your proteins properly, then you will probably not be getting enough of an amino acid called L-carnitine. Our body makes it, but not perhaps enough to suffice on its own. And especially if you're not breaking down your proteins well. So L-carnitine is one of the 2 essential nutrients needed to take fatty acids and bring them into the Krebs cycle and create energy. That and vitamin B2. So without those ingredients, you cannot burn fat for energy. So if you don't have enough L-carnitine, and it's mostly in beef and lamb, some in pork and chicken. If you're a vegetarian or vegan, you're going to find it probably hard to get enough L-carnitine from your diet because it is just an animal source food other than what your body creates. So those are a couple ways that you can have weight loss resistance because of what's going on in your gut.
Yeah, and a common, I hesitate to call it diagnosis, but I suppose it is, right? But a common pathogen potentially, right, in the gut that a lot of people experience, but maybe don't necessarily identify the symptoms are candida, right?
Right. Yes.
Will you speak to how that plays into everything too?
So candida can cause similar symptoms to SIBO and EMO and such. So you can see bloating, you can see diarrhea and constipation, and you can often do have it in conjunction with these other issues. So typically it starts with some sort of trigger, like a stressful period in your life, for example, or a period of antibiotics. So that stressful period in your life weakens your immune system, raises your cortisol, which raises your blood sugar, weakens your immune system. And then when your secretory IgA goes low, which is your gut mucosal immune system that protects the digestive tract. When that goes low, then all sorts of things start to get out of whack. That's when you start to see this dysbiosis where there's too many pathogenic bacteria and not enough commensal bacteria. And then you start to see overgrowth of candida. So then that may cause sugar cravings and carb cravings. And of course, all the problems that go along with then loading up on those foods that then create even more dysbiosis. So that's one route. And, low stomach acid. So that one too. So just as we age, it's possible to get lower stomach acid, but that can also be the result of a bacteria called H. pylori or Helicobacter pylori, which is the bacteria that causes ulcers, but it's a commensal bacteria if it's not burrowing in and making holes in your stomach, which, there are certain virulence factors that can cause stomach cancer and ulcers, but most people don't have those. Most people I test who have H. pylori have it at normal levels and it's nothing to treat. But if it is elevated, it can cause low stomach acid, as well as the aging process and deficiencies of certain nutrients necessary to make stomach acid, as well as stress. So a lot of things can cause low stomach acid. So if you have low stomach acid, then you also will see overgrowth of bacteria and yeast that you don't want.
Yeah. And as you're talking low stomach acid, I'm thinking for so many people, your symptoms of low stomach acid, your doctor often says, look like too much stomach acid.
This is true. You can have reflux because of low stomach acid. And I have had many clients in that situation where sure enough, they've had reflux, give them betaine HCl, which is substitute stomach acid. And they're like, it went away.
Yeah. So for everybody, consider, right? So you started to mention your own gastric emptying slowed, right? And we're hearing a lot in the news about slowing gastric emptying. And this, to me, comes with the role of fiber, right? And sometimes probiotics. So let's discuss each of those. When are they appropriate? How can we help people make some quality choices here?
Okay. So I want to draw a distinction between slow motility in the small intestine and slow motility in the large intestine. Slow motility in the small intestine, which is what SIBO causes, is something that's going to lead to either constipation or diarrhea. You don't know what's going to happen. It depends on the composition of your gut microbiome. If you're high in methanogens, like Methanobrevibacter smithii, then you're probably going to end up constipated. If you're high in hydrogen producers, then you're probably going to end up with loose stool or diarrhea. And it may alternate. It doesn't mean it has to be that way every day. It may sometimes be okay and then sometimes not. Sometimes okay, sometimes not. So remind me of the original question.
Yeah, no. So we're talking about, between fiber powders.
Oh, fiber, right.
Yeah.
Right. So if you have SIBO and a lot of bloating, fiber may not be what you want right now. That may not make you feel better. If you are constipated, it may also not be what you want right now, because if you're really constipated, sometimes adding fiber to that just stops you up even more and just causes more irritation. It's also contraindicated when you have inflammatory bowel disease, when you're in a flare. You want to stay away from fiber until such time as you're out of the flare. Then you want to slowly reintroduce it, and then it will prevent relapse. And then there's a bunch of different kinds of fiber. So, right, like there's psyllium husk, and then there's partially hydrogenated guar gum, which is sun fiber. And there's glucomannan, and there's arabinogalactin, and then there's polyphenols, which also feed the gut microbiome. So there's all sorts of different types. So you want to pick the right type for your situation. And if you're just a generally healthy person who maybe is just a little bit constipated, then yeah, you probably do need to add some more fiber to your diet. Fruits and vegetables being the best source, but really the powerhouses diet-wise are going to be your beans and your lentils and your chickpeas and those kinds of foods. You're not going to bang for your buck. You're never going to get enough fiber unless you eat those foods in your diet regularly. So for a normal, healthy person who doesn't have one of these conditions, then I totally recommend that be a part of your healthy diet.
And then what do you see as the role of, either some of those other fiber, sources of when we might want to pause on them or really read the ingredients of some of the things that are available?
So, interesting anecdote here. I have a client who, for her stool test, I said, why don't you stop taking the fiber because that's going to influence your test. And she's like, she'd had explosive diarrhea for an extended period of time. She said, oh, it went away 95%. Like I'm almost all better just by taking the fiber out. Turns out she probably has inflammatory bowel disease. She had a marker that was elevated called calprotectin that is indicative of inflammatory bowel disease, which she'd never been officially diagnosed with. So obviously, if you are taking fiber and you're still feeling terrible, I'd certainly try and remove it and see how you do, or try a different kind of fiber. So for example, the sun fiber I mentioned, or PHGG, is one that's recommended if you have intestinal methanogen overgrowth in conjunction with the treatment protocol. So, it just depends on the situation. It would be hard to summarize all the different, I did an entire podcast just on fiber. Right. So
yeah, for sure. And then let's talk about probiotics. And because there are so many on the market and there's so much information out there. And I think a lot of times we're led to believe that that's the answer to all of the GI symptoms.
Yeah. So if you have a major GI problem, and by major, I mean you have consistent over an extended period of time, either disrupted bowel movements, not the perfect stool, or bloating, or reflux, or one of those things. I mean, it's possible you might take a probiotic and everything goes away. I suppose that's possible, but it's very unlikely. It's very unlikely you're just going to pick the perfect probiotic and that's just going to solve all your problems. The one that's perhaps the type that's perhaps most likely to cause some drastic shifts, I would say, would be the spore-based ones. Some of those do have some evidence to single-handedly fix things because they have this quorum sensing property where they go around to other bacteria and sense you're getting overgrown here. I'm just going to release some antibiotics at you. So those might be, the certain evidence-based ones might be a solution for some people. But beyond that, they're often best in okay, we've cleaned out the gut. Now we want to add back in the right bacteria. And it's very precise. Everybody doesn't get a giant pile of 10 strain, 100 billion CFU probiotic. That, not at all. I'm picking out, this strain has evidence that it is effective in constipation. This strain is effective in ulcerative colitis. I'm picking very particular strains with evidence basis. So it's not just you should go grab the first probiotic at the grocery store or at Walmart or something. No, not at all.
Right. And it's a function of they have to be alive, right? And it has to be the right bacteria in the right part of the gut. Yeah.
Ironically, they don't necessarily have to be alive. People are selling what are postbiotic bacteria essentially now.
Well, postbiotic, yeah.
Yeah, that are
butyrate, yeah.
Well, right. No, not just that, but I mean, they're selling heat-killed bacteria in some cases because it's actually something in I don't know if the dead bacteria or the vitamins or minerals or cytokines or whatever they're putting off that is creating some effect. So there are some products now that are actually heat-killed bacteria. They're doing that with Akkermansia because it appears to be effective in type 2 diabetes, even when it's heat-killed.
Yes.
And I know they're doing that. I think there's product for balancing the immune system that's like that.
Oh, interesting. And a lot of people, right, are saying, okay, I think I need some testing, right? We've heard this conversation and maybe their GI doctor is on board and maybe they're not. You have a way for people to order their own testing.
Yes, I do have. I have a Rupa Health lab store, so people could go to that. And I know you'll put the link in the show notes, right?
Yeah.
And they can go and order their own tests. And I have a quiz too. So you can go and do the quiz and find out which stool test or functional medicine test is most likely to help you get at your root cause. And then you can go to the store and order those tests.
Amazing.
It's nice that we have that capacity in the US at least.
Yeah, exactly. And I just think, this world is complex, right? When we think about the GI tract. And so hopefully we've touched on a few of the symptoms and help people, identify that, maybe there's something more to look into, or maybe I do just need some more vegetables and see what happens,
Right.
Anything else, anything we missed, something we'd be remiss if we didn't discuss?
Well, I do want to talk about a couple other types of things that help the gut that I haven't talked about. So one is serum bovine immunoglobulins, which is a unique product because unlike an antibiotic or an herbal antimicrobial, it's not going to be broad spectrum sort of killing a bunch of everything and then seeing what's left at the end. It's actually like the immune system of a cow. So, your innate immune system learns about all the things as you grow up. And, of course, the colostrum comes from your mother if you're breastfed. And so your body trains itself on what are the pathogens that I need to be aware of so that when those come into your body, you have that explosive diarrhea because your body knows this has got to go and quickly. So basically you take from the plasma of a cow, you derive that immune system and you make it into a powder, and then we can take that and it does the same thing for us because the cows pretty much have the same pathogens we do. So it attacks these same pathogens. So it's an amazing supplement that you can just take and basically gather up all the bad stuff that's in your body, including candida, including these bacteria. So really, it's an amazingly effective supplement. And I actually just launched that supplement myself because
nice.
Almost all my clients were on it. So I thought I might as well start selling it and help them make it more affordable for them. So that's one. The other one that I like to mention is butyrate or tributrin, which is the best absorbed and best functioning form of butyrate. And that's a substance so a lot of people have heard of L-glutamine as the food for the small intestine, or maybe collagen is something that helps heal the intestinal walls. But in the large intestine, it's actually butyrate that those colon cells eat. And when it's not there, if there's not enough of it, and it's produced by the bacteria fermenting fiber. So if you have a low fiber diet, you may have gotten stuck in this cycle where you have no butyrate being produced. So what your body does instead is it pulls in oxygen to feed those cells lining the colon. And then you get in this vicious cycle because when your colon has oxygen in it, the only bacteria that do well there are the ones that can live in the presence of oxygen, or the facultative anaerobes. And those are the gram-negative bacteria, and often proteobacteria, that can create sort of this vicious cycle of, diarrhea and, bad digestion and such, loose stool. It could create constipation too. Basically, just you can tell there's problems in your large intestine. It's not functioning like it's supposed to. And if you can take butyrate or tributrin to turn that whole cycle around, it'll feed those cells lining the colon so they won't have to be pulling in that oxygen. So then it pulls the oxygen back out of the colon. It becomes an anaerobic space that promotes the growth of the butyrate producing bacteria. Of course, you got to eat that fiber too. And then that can turn that cycle around and help seal up that colon. So that's another supplement that's kind of unique in the gut space and relatively new. And that was the other supplement that I launched because, again, anybody who had loose stool or diarrhea, I put everybody on it. So I thought I might as well start selling it to them because, again, it cost a fortune. I thought I can bring a more affordable supplement to them.
Yeah. And that for everybody too, I can't remember what episode it was. We talked about, I think it was a Q&A episode. We talked about prebiotics, your fiber, probiotics, right? The bugs, and then the postbiotic or a peribiotic, which is the butyrate, the butyric acid. So thank you for bringing those up.
Yeah.
Love it. Excellent. All right. It's time for our rapid fire off topic questions. Are you ready?
I love it. Yeah.
Okay. What's the best thing you've done for your health this week? What's the naughtiest thing you've done related to your health this week?
Best thing I've done. I guess the best thing I've done is exercise regularly every 2 days. I go to the gym, lift weights and swim. And naughtiest thing, there was a party with friends, and there were these desserts that had all sorts of gluten and dairy, and I don't do well with either of those, and I just ate them up because I couldn't resist.
Delicious, right? Yeah.
They're delicious.
I love it. All right. If you weren't a health coach and the host of The Perfect Stool, what would you do?
Well, I did have a previous career as a study abroad advisor, so maybe I would try and go back into that career and get back involved. But I never was much for a 9-to-5 job where you had to sit in somebody else's air-conditioned box. So I don't know. I think I'd retire early and just try and live a life of leisure.
Love it. Your favorite book on any topic other than your area of expertise, or you could give us a fiction book.
Yeah, my favorite book is Catch-22, and I'm actually in the process of rereading it in Italian because I got it in Italian once in order to work on my Italian. So yeah, I have ambitions of retiring half the year to Venice, so I'm brushing up on my Italian.
Amazing. Pack me in your suitcase. Right? If you could cure one ailment, disease, or sickness, what would it be?
Oh, cancer. I mean, gosh, everybody's impacted by it. It's devastating. I can name 5 people I know with it right now.
Yeah. If you were a superhero, what would be your superpower?
I've had my ex-husband made endless fun of me for the fact that my favorite superhero was Aquaman, because I love that he can breathe underwater and communicate with the fishes. So some combo of those two.
What's your biggest pet peeve?
I hate when men leave the toilet seat up.
Get it? Yep. All right. Last one. In your opinion, what's the next frontier in wellness?
I kind of feel like functional medicine is the next frontier. It's already here, but I guess the next frontier is for the conventional medical community to start embracing it and recommending people to functional medicine providers or naturopaths or health coaches or people who have a different view other than, pharmaceuticals and surgery and such. So, yeah.
Hopefully. It's in process, I think. We see glimmers. Yeah.
Well, I think what it is that people are now just going straight to the internet and they're finding those people. They don't need to go via their health practitioner because they can go directly and get the information themselves.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Lindsey, thank you so much for being here. Tell everybody how to connect with you, where to learn more, all that good stuff.
So my website is highdeserthealthcoaching.com. I also, the supplements I mentioned are at perfectstool.com. And you can find my podcast on any podcast player, just, with the name, search under The Perfect Stool. And, I've got all the socials, but you can find those links in the show notes if you want to follow those.
Exactly. Yes. We'll put links to everything there for you. Well, thank you again for being here. Just
thank you so much.
Appreciate your perspective and your wisdom and helping everybody, get clearer.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. All right, everybody. On Friday in our Nutrition Nugget, we're talking about sparkling ice. So shout out to Sarah for sending this one in. She asked about flavored sparkling water and said she really likes this brand. So we added it to the list for an upcoming Nutrition Nugget, and it's finally here. So be sure wherever you're listening, click the plus sign or the follow button so that your app alerts you when the Nutrition Nugget goes live on Friday morning. As always, everyone, I'm your host, Jenn Trepeck. Connect with me on Instagram or all social media. I'm at Jenn Trepeck, JENN. TREPECK. Website is asaladwithasideofries.com. Pick your platform, send a message. I love hearing from you, your ideas for nutrition nuggets, your takeaways, your questions. This is also the easiest way to learn more about working with me as your health coach. Lindsey Parsons, thank you again for being here.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And friends, if you are not already, join our membership by going to glow.fm/saladwithasideofries. This shows your support for this podcast, this community, and most importantly, your health. You'll get this week's recipe for the one-pan honey lemon chicken and asparagus. So until next week, remember the symptoms you're experiencing are your body communicating with you. So let's listen and support it because our gut health translates into our overall health. Well, friends, that's it for today's episode of Salad with a Side of Fries. Congratulations for making yourself and your health a priority. Thanks so much for joining us. Be sure to click subscribe or follow on your favorite podcast platform. Share us with a friend, and we'll be back next week. Always remember, you deserve it, and you are worth it. Happy healthy.